the Bioinitiative report, which says a rationale for biologically based public exposure standard for electromagnetic fields, ELF and radio frequent fields. And what we 9 months, we looked at a tip of an iceberg and collected approximately 2,000 scientific references, which we summarized on a little bit more than 600 pages. So it takes some time to read it and go through it, but I will just mention some of the studies that we looked at. This is a study published 1992 in Bioelectromagnetics. It's by Henry Lai and his collaborators. The title is Microwave Irradiation Affects Radial RNA's Performance in the Rat. And what they could show was that using the Bluetooth standard of 2.45 gigahertz, they could impair the possibility for rats. These rats showed retarded learning, and the retarded learning was dependent on the fact that they had a decrease in concentration capacity and a decrease in short-term memory. And the interesting thing is that they exposed them for 45 minutes, not 45 years, 45 minutes. And at an exposure level of 0.6 watts per kilogram, and you're supposed to withstand 2 watts per kilogram, you remember, so it's quite all right. And still, the rats, they responded with this retarded learning capacity. And my question to you, especially you that are parents, teachers, headmasters, and likewise, is that really what you want to give to your kids? You have to think about it. You don't have to respond, but after 45 minutes, that happened to rats. And the question is, what happens to children, teenagers, and adults, of course, when they use this system day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year? And they are constantly exposed to the background irradiation from all the base stations. Another study within the Bioinitiative report, you remember there were in the order of 2,000 of them, and I will show you like 10 of them, is again Henry Lai and his collaborator Narendra Singh, who has published a series of papers around effects on the DNA, the molecule behind your genes and genome. And they could show that very low-level irradiation will break the DNA molecule in, for instance, nerve cells of rat brains. And it's both single and double strand breaks, and the interesting thing is that this effect is cumulative. The more you expose the rats, the worse it gets. Such DNA breakages could form the basis for a lot of different things happening later on in life, including, for instance, cancer. Again, one has to ask oneself, is this what you would like your neighbors and so on? We are at levels that are okay according to official guidelines, and still you see this. The industry, they didn't like the previous study, and there were other research groups that did similar studies on other cell types. So the industry said that, hey, we need to really reveal the truth behind this. So they gathered, and I don't know exactly the figures, I heard somewhere in the order of 100 million euros, and it was given via the European Union to 12 laboratories, independent of each other, in 7 countries within Europe, and they were supposed to, in double-blind fashion, expose cells to mobile phone radiation. And the idea was, of course, that they should very firmly establish and prove that Henry Lai and his collaborators were wrong. The problem was, though, when the code was open and the data was revealed, it proved opposite. These laboratories had shown that microwaves from mobile phones will damage your DNA molecules. And the interesting thing, which John mentioned before, is that when they compared in different assay systems, the effect they saw after, as you see, 24 hours mobile phone irradiation, and the exposure level is well below the guideline. It's 1.3 watts per kilogram. You should take 2 watts per kilogram. They saw exactly the same type of damage as you would see after 1,600 chest x-rays. No human being has ever been subjected to that number of chest x-rays, but they saw exactly the same effect. Does that make you happy? Do you think that the industry got pissed? That they tried to stop the publication of this enormous reflex study, as it's called? Well, I think you have the answers yourself. And last Monday, I met one of the scientists behind this, Franz Abelhofer, in the French Senate in Paris, and he showed a lot more data that were, in a sense, even more scary. So the research and discussion is going on, but in France at a completely different level. The Senate is the highest level when it comes to law and order in France. So it's of course a very prestigious type of meeting, as this is in this room. Another study I could mention very shortly is from Greece, where two scientists, Magras and Xenos, they were asked to look at the deterioration of public health. And to make it in a meaningful fashion, they picked a certain time at which they started to check very carefully what was going on. Why did people in Greece have a deterioration of their health? And they were very accurate. They looked on everything. Had they started to smoke more? Had